The M1 is a complete game changer. It's a monster, and that's putting it lightly. And now it's made its way onto the iPad Pros. To be completely honest, this new M1 iPad Pro should decimate whatever competition there is still remaining. This now truly is the king of all tablets, and it's untouchable. Now that the iPad Pro features the all-new M1 chip, comparing it to competitors is like putting in Francis Ngannou versus Rey Mysterio or something. My point is, this new iPad Pro featuring the new M1 chip is a massive leap forward in terms of specs and performance versus the previous 2020 iPad Pro that features the A12Z, another in-house Apple chip that respectfully is also a beast. No one is saying the A12Z is now old or slow, not at all. It's just that the M1 chip makes the A12Z look like a total chump, boasting spec gains of well over 30%. As well as other improvements, this iPad is near perfect aside from one major flaw that I'll discuss later on in the video. Today, we're going to go over a quick unboxing and review, as well as go over everything that's new and ask the almighty question: should you upgrade? Let's not waste any time and let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, here we have it, our brand new iPad Pro 12.9 inch. We'll be looking at the 12.9 inch specifically in this video, as there are some new features exclusive only to the larger model, so we'll unbox and review the 11 inch in a separate video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel with bell so you don't miss out on that one. But we can see we have our rather large white iPad box with the all new 2021 M1 iPad Pro wallpaper that I think looks very sexy. Apple normally has some pretty dank wallpapers if you ask me. We have our standard color-coded iPad Pro branding on both sides with color-matched Apple logos on the top and bottom. On the back, we have our serial number information as well as an indication at our specs. In my case, I picked up the 1TB model, which does differ in terms of specs versus the lower storage models. I'll brush up on that as well a little later. Let's quickly pull our tab, open the box, and lo and behold, our gargantuan 12.9 inch iPad is staring us right in the face. But as is customary, we'll set it off to the side and see what else we find inside. I remember the days where Apple included a bunch of goodies inside the box. Nowadays, we just get our stupid warranty and information guide, 2 Apple stickers, which is always nice, and underneath we see our USB-C to USB-C charging cable and our 20-watt USB-C power adapter. I wonder how many more years the power adapter will be included in the box before they pull the same little stunt they did to the iPhones. And now, going back to the star of the show. Remove the frosted plastic that protects that all-new gorgeous display during shipment, press and hold the power button for a few seconds, and wait for the Apple logo to pop up, and you'll be on your way to setting it up for the first time. That's all there is to it. Alright, so we have plenty to talk about, so let's first start with the design, and as you can see, the chassis has not changed whatsoever and is nearly identical to the previous model. I say nearly because this new M1 model is slightly thicker to accommodate room for all the M1 internals, and also for our all-new display. The difference is extremely minor, only half a millimeter thicker, and is about 40 grams heavier. On paper, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you had the previous 2020 iPad Pro 12.9 inch and then pick this one up, you'll be able to tell it's slightly beefier right away. The battery inside physically is also bigger, due in part to it being thicker. However, one would think that due to the M1 chip and its efficiency, it'd be able to preserve battery longer, but you also have to factor in our new display quality. However, as you know, here on TheJuan&Only, we don't just take Apple's word for it. You better believe I'll be performing one of my infamous battery drain tests very soon. Let me know in the comments below if you're excited about that video, and subscribe with bells if you haven't already. But anyway, as I was saying, the M1 in theory should make battery preservation more efficient, but we now feature the same display technology as the massive 32-inch Pro XDR display. That's right, we now feature a display that is much improved, being the same size at 12.9 inches, but now featuring Apple's Liquid Retina XDR display. Interestingly, the 11-inch was discriminated against. I know, a big shame since I actually prefer the size of the 11-inch Pro better and use that one more often. Only the 12.9-inch features the new Liquid Retina XDR, while the 11-inch essentially has the same exact display carried over from the previous model. Why the 11-inch didn't get the XDR treatment is anyone's guess. Still carried over, it features ProMotion technology and True Tone. This now means that colors will be more vivid, especially when viewing HDR content. Blacks are richer and deeper as well, so watching movies or consuming content gets a big upgrade since those black bars aren't as obvious as before. I realize it's not as apparent on camera, but when you look at them side by side in person, the difference is massive. You no longer see the backlight LED still technically being on that bleeds through, and instead is now more reminiscent of an OLED display without being OLED. The display actually has mini LED technology with 2,500 local dimming zones and 10,000 individual mini LEDs that makes your content jump with color, and those deep blacks really makes for a pleasurable viewing experience. It's not all pros here, as some users have reported blooming issues specifically on this new XDR 12.9-inch iPad. Blooming is basically light leakage around high contrast areas. It's sometimes referred to as the halo effect, as it produces an effect that appears to somehow glow around the object within a high contrast area when it normally shouldn't do so. If you want to see a video specifically on the blooming issues with this new iPad, and if it's a concern to you, just let me know in the comments below. Thankfully, because of the XDR technology, the iPad can reach a max brightness of 1000 nits and up to 1600 nits when viewing HDR content. This is crazy important for people who are always on the go with their iPad and who may use it as their everyday machine, or for pro use, as now, taking this iPad outdoors or near windows with heavy glare will make the display easier to view thanks to the increased brightness. Above our awesome new and gorgeous display is a tweaked true depth camera now with an ultra wide lens. The front camera can now take 12 megapixel photos and has an f2.4 aperture with up to 2 times optical zoom out. I don't know how many people are using their iPads for front-facing selfies, but with the new wider lens, you can see just how much more of your subject you're able to capture when zooming out. It's pretty gnarly, and for those who use FaceTime or are Zoom regulars, the new True Depth camera has a really neat feature called Center Stage. For apps that support it, the camera will be able to pan and zoom in and out to ensure you're always taking center stage, hence the clever naming of said feature. It has a pretty impressive 122-degree field of view, and even when other people try to get into the frame, the iPad will do its best to make sure both subjects are within frame. If this feature isn't up your alley or you don't want it following you, this feature can be easily toggled off in camera settings. Another great addition that makes this new 12.9-inch iPad even more pro-ish is that now our USB-C port gets upgraded to a Thunderbolt port with USB 4 speeds and up to 40 gigabit per second throughput. This is a welcome addition, as this just adds to the extra peripherals you're able to use with this new iPad Pro. Extra storage banks, faster transfer speeds of media, like for example, I can connect my camera directly to the iPad and import a ton of images at impressive speeds on Lightroom. The Thunderbolt port found on the new iPad Pro is even good enough to hook up to a Pro Display XDR, for the very few out there that own one, so that your content can be blown up for you to enjoy in all of that 6K goodness. Not sure how useful this will be, especially given that a very minuscule portion of Apple consumers even own an XDR display, but it's there for those that do own one just in case. But the feature is there for those that do own one. The true improvements are internal with all of that tremendous raw power the M1 brings. This, in essence, is the exact same computer as the MacBook Air if you think about it. I mean, you take a look at the MacBook Air, a fanless M1 computer, and well, this iPad Pro is obviously also fanless, only difference is the software and the chassis. One runs a full desktop OS while the other runs iPad OS with a touch display. iPad OS, in my opinion, as of right now, is just a hybrid software that is basically just iOS on steroids. The base model comes in with 128 gigabytes, not enough to warrant the Pro moniker in my opinion, but anyway, it starts at an eye-watering $1,099, a good lump sum of money for most, and you can spec it out all the way to 2 whole terabytes. That's roughly 2,000 gigabytes. Insane. The 2 terabyte model will also set you back $2,199. My goodness, that's a ton of money, and that's not even including the cost of the optional Apple Pencil 2 and the Magic Keyboard. There is also the cellular model that I think have increased in pricing. I want to say before, if you wanted to upgrade to a cellular model, it'd be like $130 or $140 upgrade, but now it's going to cost you $200 to upgrade. This is presumably due to the new 5G modem that gives this new killer machine 5G capabilities. I personally don't need my iPad to have 5G, as I am almost always somewhere with Wi-Fi, but my needs may change later in the future. This model right here is the 1TB model, and now, oddly, Apple has been very open with how much RAM is featured on the iPads. The 128GB, 256 model, and 512GB models come with 8GB of RAM, while the 1TB and 2TB have 16GB of RAM. With how well optimized the M1 chip is, sadly, I feel the OS has severe limitations on what the iPad Pro is truly capable of. I don't know, I'd love to see a full desktop version of Logic Pro or even Final Cut Pro to take advantage of the M1, but then again, that'd basically kill off the errors, I would imagine. Who knows, with WWDC around the corner, I really hope Apple has something up their sleeve to really make iPad OS unique and worthy of the M1 chip. Interestingly, apparently, according to some reports, the M1 12.9-inch iPad Pro allows developers to only use up to 5.1GB of RAM for their apps. Huge plot twist, I know. Allocating more than 5.1GB apparently crashes the apps. So then you may be asking yourself, then what's the point of the 16 gigs if apps can't even take advantage of that much RAM? Same, I'm asking myself the same question. This is occurring on both the 8GB variants and the 16GB, so we'll just have to wait and see what Apple does to iPadOS at WWDC. And really, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, these are these iPads' glaring weakness, the limitations iPadOS presents on these extremely powerful machines. Yes, of course, the new M1 iPad Pro is extremely snappy, and you'd be surprised at how long these iPads suspend apps on the dock in the internal memory. I mean, it's insane. Even pro-ish applications like Lightroom open right back up from where you left off even after several hours, even days. But right now, for most people, I'd even go as far to say for roughly 90% of people, the iPad Air is just fine. Being a content creator, my single wish is to see a fully fledged Final Cut Pro app that I can use and edit just like I would on a Mac. In that case, man, especially combining the Magic Keyboard, if that was the case, I think I'd completely ditch my MacBooks and rely solely on the iPad Pro. Sure, it'll never have the feeling of your standard notebook, but this is a fully fledged computer just trapped within the walls of iPadOS. It's still a massive upgrade in terms of specs, boasting an extremely impressive Geekbench score of 1721 on single core and a staggering 7,260 for multi-score. What? That's pretty crazy. It's even crazier when comparing directly against my near fully spec'd MacBook Pro 16-inch, all but the storage, as that Intel 16-inch MacBook Pro has a multi-core score of 7,098. This is simply insane. But again, it's like having the body of a Lamborghini trapped with the engine of your typical Honda Accord or something. On paper, it's insane, but until there's some real-world practicality to utilizing that much power on the M1, I'll be able to confidently ditch my MacBook Pro for this M1 Pro if that ever happens. So listen, should you upgrade your 12.9-inch iPad Pro? I'd say hold off since WWDC has me in so much suspense. iPadOS 15 will dictate the future of the M1 iPad, but I tend to believe Apple included this ultra powerful M1 for a reason. So I have high hopes iPadOS will be tweaked so that we're able to take advantage of that tremendous power under the hood. If you have the 2020 or even the 2019 iPad Pro 12.9-inch, you're really not missing out on much, yet. The A12X and A12Z found on the 2019 and 2020 12.9-inch models respectively provide more than ample firepower. Now, it may sound like I'm downplaying the M1 chip, but I'm not. It's a monster chipset and no other tablet comes close to its power, but the software limits you on using up all that power. If the other features I mentioned are worth it for you, by all means, do it. The display alone is enough to entice many with that gorgeous XDR display with that 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, much brighter display, and of course the mini LED technology that allows for deeper blacks and richer, more vibrant colors. If it were up to me, I'd say hold off if you can until WWDC and then make your decision. I think for most, the iPad Air will work just fine for most people's workload. But if you have your eyes set on the new M1 12.9-inch, go ahead and run it. You won't be disappointed. As always, guys, I want to know your thoughts. Let's get a nice conversation started in the comment section on your thoughts and opinions on this all-new beast of a machine. Give me a thumbs up as it helps the algorithm push my content out to other people interested in tech, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see future content just like this. That's been my review, guys. Until next time, be safe, and I cannot wait to catch you all in my next video.